So I finished watching Revolutionary Girl Utena earlier today, and I just want to make this video to share my thoughts on it, as well as my thoughts on another of director Ikuhara's work, Ramble Penguindrum. And as a disclaimer, I watched Penguindrum a couple years ago, so I am lost on a lot of the small details and will probably get a lot of stuff wrong. And I just finished Utena a few hours ago, so that is not enough time to completely digest this show, so I will also probably be getting a lot of things wrong. And I apologize for that in advance, but I still just wanted to share my thoughts on it. While watching each of these shows, something that is very striking is the symbolism. And that is what is commonly discussed when you see these shows, how everything is symbolic and how everything has some other meaning. And you need to pay attention to all this deep symbolism. And I love it. I think it's great because it makes a very, very interesting viewing experience. While I was watching Utena, I paid attention to every detail. What does every single thing mean? The way certain student council members are arranging their seating to make a stopwatch, right? What does every single detail mean? Because I'm trying to catch the symbolism. And I think this is awesome, and this is a great way to tell a story that's very unique and very special. And it really makes these anime stand out. The problem that I think with Ikuhara's works is that they kind of suffer from symbolism overload and complete oversaturation of the idea. When everything can be a symbol, things kind of start losing their meaning. And you start focusing on a lot of things that just don't matter. And a lot of ideas get lost in translation. And this might be the point. Ikuhara is known as a gigantic troll in interviews, never giving a straight answer to everything. Everything's up to interpretation. Pretty sure the stopwatch doesn't mean anything, and that a huge amount of attention was brought to that. So yeah, maybe they're meant to be a misdirection. Maybe we're not supposed to get it. But then I feel like a lot of symbolism that is important just goes over my head because I'm trying to understand all these things that aren't important. And so when you see Utena, the part where they're literally pointing out the symbolism, right? What do the cats in the back mean? I don't know. But then you have the butterfly reverting to a leaf in the elevator that is super important. And so you have to distinguish what's important, what's not. And a lot of it is lost to me. So if I think back on Penguindrum, which I saw a couple years ago, the penguins stand out on me. But then there's so many other details and symbols that just like, I can't remember because there's too much. It's oversaturated. And they lose a lot of their impact. And maybe that's just the style of show. And maybe that's what he likes to do. And good for him. And maybe some people like that. I definitely think it's an enjoyable experience to watch. I love both of these shows. But they lose a lot of their long-term impact with this. And it's a very common thread through all his works, especially Utena and Penguindrum. However, I definitely think there was a big difference in the way that Utena and Penguindrum define their narratives, right? So, my biggest problem with Penguindrum, when I had watched it a couple years ago, is that it covered so many themes and ideas that I had no idea what the show was about by the end of it. Because there was just so much going on. It felt like there was some new thematic plot twist at the end of every episode. And a lot of those themes just didn't stick with me. The one that did, that I remember most from the show, was the child grader towards the end of the show. And I thought it was a great idea, and that's a great theme. And it's explored a bit in the show. But amongst a million others, a ton of characters were introduced at random moments and then disappear after they've served their symbolic and thematic purposes. And it just becomes this huge mess of ideas that you might get one or two things out. But as a whole show, I definitely think it suffers a lot. And that's just my opinion though, because I like shows that are much tighter thematically. I like choosing a couple of ideas and exploring them to their fullest. And I feel like Utena does this a lot more than Penguindrum does. Because where Penguindrum has a ton of themes that it all kind of explores, Utena has a few central themes that it explores possibly too much. So Utena deals with these themes of gender roles, typical gender roles, sexuality, childhood and adulthood, and it explores these themes really, really, really in depth. And you can see this through the duels, right? The council members. Utena ideologically duels each member about 3 times. Actually, duels them twice, you could say, for the first and third arcs. But then there a relation to them in the second arc, and it explores a lot of these ideas really, really, really in depth. And I'm gonna need more time to really understand what it's saying about all these ideas. But I really liked that about Utena, the way that it explored all these ideas really, really in depth. But then you had Penguindrum, which is like, it felt like he was throwing out a new idea every few episodes. It was like, oh, let's go this girl. I think her name was Ringo. It's like, oh, let's see what crazy thing she's up to. Okay, that's resolved, and now she's kind of tagging along because we got this new guy that we're dealing with. And it was probably as many characters as Utena did, but they were spaced out and they weren't recurring and they didn't tie into each other as well, I don't believe. At least not that I can remember. And it was a mess for me. And it's cool, but it's a mess. And so that's what I really liked about Utena, going back now to, which is one of his earlier works, how things are tied together a lot better. Although a lot of the meaning is still lost on me. Like I said, pretty sure the stopwatches means nothing. But then each student council member represents a different desire, and it comments on these desires and how they relate. And then you had Utena at the end, which I don't exactly know what statement it's trying to make on that. And I'm not sure it's trying to make a very concise one. It's very much whatever you interpret it to be is the correct answer, which works in some ways. But when you start mixing it with all this symbolism that's supposed to mean something, or maybe that's just supposed to mean nothing, I don't know, I'm confused. I'm just trying to figure this out as I just ramble about this video. But yeah, so when you look at these two works, it's just the symbolism coding is pretty much the same between the two of them, but the way that Utena handles its themes, I feel, is much more concise and much stronger than the way Penguindrum does it. Which is why I like Utena now a lot better after just finishing it, and why I still think Penguindrum was a mess after this whole time. And yeah, that's about my thoughts, so thank you for watching the video.